Hello and welcome to today's episode of What the is that on your bench? Do you remember these? This is the Pioneer something or other, Pioneer XCIS21T stereo CD tuner deck. And whether you like it or not, this is what HiFi looked like in 1999. Today I thought we could have a healthy dose of 90s nostalgia. It may not be the best memories, especially to those of you that are really into your 70s vintage HiFi, but stick around because I've got something to show you too that's super cool in a moment. And I thought it would be fun to show you what £500 bought you before the turn of the millennium, why these were so popular, why these units have celebrity status, and how I think consumer hi-fi reached this place altogether. Plus, a side-by-side of Pioneer's offerings 20 years prior. Oh, how the mighty had fallen. And believe it or not, why I think this still represents pretty good value today. So, stick around and we'll find out exactly what happened to Pioneer. Now, picture the scene. It's 1999. You're a teenager. Well, I was anyway. You're living at home with your parents. Social media doesn't exist yet. Smartphones don't exist yet. You've still got a tiny little TV in your room with no cable, no satellite television, certainly no Netflix. And what do you do most of the day to keep yourself occupied? If you're not outside, you're playing your PlayStation with no online gaming and you're listening to your favorite CDs. At least that's what I did. And I think that's what a lot of us did back then. Your parents drag you out shopping and you end up at a shopping mall. You don't want to be there, but you're there. What's the one thing the shopping mall has that the teenagers love? The electronic stores, right? So while mum and dad are off looking at whatever they're looking at, washing machines, clothes. Ugh, did anyone like clothes at that age? You spot Dixon's. Now for my American friends, Dixon's is like a smaller version of Best Buy. No longer exists, but it was a cool place. You say to mum and dad, I'll just be 5 minutes, and you run into that shop, straight to the stereo aisle. And what do you see in front of you on the top shelf but this? And I promise you, this looked so damn cool back in 1999. It had that sleek silver finish, it had the chrome pieces. It's obviously a demo unit, it's playing music, and this power output needle on the amplifier is bouncing. I know you 70s guys are used to the view meters and the power meters, but us older millennials, a lot of our systems didn't have that sort of thing. And so once you see this and that bouncing needle and the bright blue light, it was cool. It was super cool. And I admit I wanted one of these more than anything at that time. And guess what? It doesn't have a button to open. It's just a light touchpad. And it just glides down magnificently. And you can sit there all day. And believe me, kids did. They just stand there pressing this up and down. And I think some of the ones that I saw back then actually had 40 doors on in the shop on display with 40 sliding doors. So many kids my age had been in there just pressing it, mesmerized by the open and close function, that it actually gave up. But that didn't matter. I still wanted one more than anything else. I'm picturing it in my bedroom. I've got my friends coming around. They've seen it. Everybody's mesmerized. I'm the luckiest kid in school. And then I take a look at the price. And if memory serves me correct, this was somewhere between £450 and £500 in 1999, which is about $600 or $700 US. Safe to say my parents were not about to spend that much money on little old me for me to have this in my room. And rightly so, actually. But that didn't stop me dreaming about wanting one. So I'm just stood there in Dixon's, this thing blaring, just taking it in, loving the moment, but sad knowing that I'm not going to be able to own it. And I was absolutely correct. I never did own it. Until now. 27 years later. So is this thing as good as I had made it to be in my mind, or was nostalgia simply doing all the heavy lifting? Well, let's take a closer look and see if we can try and answer that question. Let's start with what it did have going for it. The main positive thing this had going for it, and I know looks are subjective and some of you may think this just looks like a bowl of vomit, but it's the looks, because it just looked wow. Hopefully you can appreciate it now, but I promise you could in 1999 as a teenager or a young man. The bright blue LCD display, the bright blue power meter on the amplifier there, it just screamed cool. It really, really did. It felt really futuristic. It felt special. It may not look like a wow factor, but this touch thing, yeah, that was pretty cool. And remote control. And you could do that by the remote. So there's hours of fun. You could just sit there pressing the button, moving it up and down. But aside from looks, what else did you get? Well, this is what they called a mini HiFi system. And as far as mini HiFi systems go, this one was actually quite large because a lot of them didn't have 4 components. You'd have your all-in-one mini system and then you'd have your 2 bookshelf speakers. This was one of the few units that incorporated a separate power amplifier around this time. So this made it a little bit more special, or it made it feel more special. It made it look more special. But essentially what you got was an integrated amplifier, a CD player, an AM/FM tuner for your radio, and then you had your cassette deck, which again, could be controlled on remote control. Open and close the drawer. As I say, hours of fun. Unfortunately, it comes from a time where things were made to look good rather than sound good. When it comes to hi-fi, that's kind of a shame. It certainly wasn't alone. Most units designed around this time, if not all, were designed at a budget, to a price point, and they were selling stereos based on the way they looked, based on the numbers they would put on display in terms of wattage that they would put out. And don't get me started with the 90s watt wars. Some of the numbers they were claiming were absolutely ridiculous. I'll flash up on the screen the correct wattage that was quoted for this, but I believe it was something like 2 times 200 watts. And it doesn't put out anything like it. And then when you look into the data of this, total harmonic distortion at that rating is something like 10 or 12%. Whereas years prior, their wattage claims would be based on THD of 0.1. That might mean something to some of you and less to others, but they just fudge the numbers is what I'm saying. Now, in terms of build quality, it doesn't really shine there either. The speakers are a lightweight chipboard. The speaker components themselves aren't of very high quality at all. They're really quite poor. The fascia to everything is all cheap plastic. All the buttons, everything's plastic. This is metal. The housing to the side of the amplifier is metal, but it's almost all plastic. And bear in mind, this was one of Pioneer's higher end consumer hi-fi systems. And in electronic stores at that time, this was one of the most expensive available in the stores. So I think I should probably show you what Pioneer were doing 20 years earlier. This is what Pioneer were offering in the 1970s. And look at it, just look at it. Real aluminium faceplates, solid milled aluminium knobs and switches. The model designation and the logo lettering has all been engraved as well as painted. You had solid walnut veneer on the outer cases. Build quality on these, absolutely incomparable to the build quality of that. Lightweight, plastic, a little bit of tinny metal here and there, poor components internally. This was quality, out and out, complete quality. Everything feels nice to touch. All the switches are reassuringly tactile and just beautiful. This is real glass, not plastic. They are absolutely stunning pieces of equipment. So how then, in just 20 years, did consumer hi-fi go from this to this? Now my guess here is that you already know the answer to this question. It's money. In the 1970s, a stack like this from Pioneer would have probably cost you £1,000 or so for all 3 components. You've got your integrated amplifier here, your separate AM/FM tuner here, and your cassette deck here. Obviously CDs didn't exist yet. And without speakers, you're probably looking at upwards of £1,000 in 1977, which in 1999 would probably equate to closer to £3,000. And in 1999, consumers just weren't prepared to spend that sort of money on a hi-fi system for their home. Kevin at Skylabs has done an excellent video on this, and if I can find it, I'll link it in the description below. But he goes on to explain the reason he believes this happened. And you have to agree with him that back in 1977, what did you have in your home, electronics-wise? You may have had an old TV set, and you would have had a stereo system. What else was there? An old telephone? on the wall, that was it. That was all you had. So your household budget for entertainment and electronics within your home was limited to just a TV and a stereo system. It didn't need to stretch beyond that. You fast forward to 1999, and okay, smartphones didn't exist yet, but TVs now had satellite. Every person wanted a TV in their own room. Back then it would probably been one TV in the home. By this time, you're looking at probably at least 3 TVs per household. Games consoles now exist.
All the power and excitement of Nintendo right in the palm of your hand. Introducing Game Boy.
The children want a games console. That has to go into the pot. New games for your games console. Mobile phones exist. Not smartphones as we know them, but mobile phones existed.
The new Nokia, with Nokia Express On covers.
And everybody over the age of 15 wanted one of those, so that had to go into the pot. Payment on those mobile phones. Walkmans existed.
You really feel the music with the Sony Walkman.
The Sony Walkman.
So portable CD players, headphones for those CD players.
All you need is one of these. Get your hands on a Sony car disc, man.
Home PCs now became a thing. In the 70s, we didn't have home PCs. 1999, a lot of families had PCs by that point, and they were not cheap.
For just $19.99, we'll build you this Dell Dimension XPS with a 233 MHz Intel Pentium 2 processor.
Limited as they were expensive. So you can see over time, as consumer electronics grew and grew and grew, the budget for each element shrank. And obviously materials became more expensive. So what it would have cost Pioneer to make this in 1977 would have cost them probably 4 or 5 times that to make in 1999. And you can probably 4 or 5 times that again today. So now what asking prices do Pioneer or other manufacturers need to ask to warrant making something of this quality? Well, it's a lot. It's a real lot. And not many people, apart from the ultra rich, are prepared to pay that sort of money for a hi-fi system. Not these days. They're just not. We now have MP3s, we now have smart speakers and streaming and phones and earpods, and the desire for these sorts of things is just diminishing year after year, which is kind of sad because I'm passionate about this stuff. I love this stuff. Maybe not so much these days. But although this doesn't even hold a candle to the Pioneer of 1977, I still love it. It still represents a time in my life where I love these things. I love the physical media. And in a way, it represents the last of physical media. Within a couple of years of this coming out, MP3s started becoming popular. Everyone had an MP3 player. Smartphones were just around the corner. And without even looking at stats, I can tell you sales of physical hi-fi systems like this can only have dropped every year on year since this, because of those reasons. But, I have faith. I have a little bit of faith. And I actually think we're going to start seeing demand of these units and similar from this era increasing in demand very soon. I think I'm already seeing it. People around my age, around 40, maybe a little bit younger, maybe a little bit older, are kind of looking back and they're reminiscing that nostalgic memory of their stereo system when they were teenagers. I bought this because I thought it would be a good video, but also because it was one that I genuinely lusted after when I was young. And I thought, you know what, I'd like to experience it and make a video on it. But I won't be the only one doing so. And these days, these things are picked up for well under £100. And no, they're not anywhere near as good as this stuff. But when you keep in mind that most people are listening to music on devices like this, Bluetooth speakers or smart speakers, and how does this compare to this in terms of sound quality? Actually, this is a lot better. It's night and day. I did a little test earlier. I played a CD on here, jar rule. You got to keep it period correct. Fun fact, this is why I said this had celebrity status. This stereo featured in the very first Fast and Furious movie. There you go. Little fun fact for you. But hey, if you're watching and you think, you know what, I remember my old stereo, I used to love that thing, and you don't currently have one, why not? Why not give it another go? Have a trip down memory lane. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed playing around with this and looking at this thing. Is it as awesome as I thought it was going to be when I was a teenager? No. But can I still see and get that feeling of why I loved it so much? Yeah, yeah, I can. And hey, I'd sooner that than this. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. If you're new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out. My channel's all about hi-fi gear, normally more like this than this. Feeling adventurous today. Thanks again. Cheers.